Welcome to episode 112 of the Forward from 50 podcast, where we interview people over 50 who are pursuing new direction for their lives. It's an opportunity for men and women to tell their stories, their way, and in their own words. I'm Greg Gerber, the founder of Forward from 50, and your host for today's show. In this episode, we're diving into the fascinating world of brain health with Dr. Linda Sasser. She is a former college professor who turned her curiosity about memory into a mission to help people age with clarity, vitality, and joy. After years of teaching at Christian campuses like Wheaton College and Judson University, Linda focused her research on cognitive aging and what happens to our memory as we grow older. What she discovered might surprise you, and it could change the way you think about your own future. Linda shares practical, science-based strategies for anyone over 50 to use to strengthen their brain and preserve their memory. Whether you're concerned about occasional forgetfulness or just want to keep your mind sharp, this conversation is one you won't want to miss. To offer advice on ways people can better maintain a healthy brain, please welcome Linda Sasser to the show. Thanks for joining me today, Linda. I really appreciate it. How did you get interested in brain health? That is so interesting.
I suppose it started actually with an interest in memory. I had been an elementary teacher, and then I was in graduate school to study educational psychology, and I had to take a course called cognitive psychology, where we learned all about the brain, attention, memory. I realized that is a very important thing, that we all use our memory every day. As teachers, we want students to learn and remember what we're teaching them. And then, so I decided to focus my doctoral research on the topic of memory. Then, as I was a professor at two Christian colleges, at one point after teaching for a number of years, I got to do a sabbatical, and I chose a research project. And I actually was curious about what happens to memory as we get older, cognitive aging, because so many people were now being identified with Alzheimer's disease, dementia, and so forth. And it was becoming a serious problem, not just in our country, but around the world. And so I did research on brain health. And as a result of that, I just went on from there to make that my focus.
I think that is
topics.
Memory loss is, I think, the number one fear people over 50 have, that they don't want to get into that situation, because we've all known people who've done that. And I understand that a lot of it is preventable because it's related to our diet and our sleeping patterns and things like that. Is that true?
Yes. And that's when I started studying the research that was being done about brain health, it became clear that a lot of what happens to our brain as we get older is not just genetics. A lot of it is lifestyle behaviors or practices. And so I thought I really need to share this with people because we can all benefit from this information. And I feel like one of my things I love to do is to distill the research down into layman's terms and make it practical for people. And so that's what I did as a result of that research I did on brain health. I thought, because they actually have a term for people you mentioned over 50. We're called the worried well, because a lot of people, especially if they have a relative or a friend or someone who has gotten Alzheimer's or Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia, but there's vascular, Lewy body, and so forth. But basically, knowing people that have that, when you start having a memory slip or two or three, you start worrying, is it happening to me? And so I wanted to be able to share with people what's normal, what's not normal, what things should raise a red flag and say, okay, go get this checked out. Maybe it is indicating something amiss. The other thing that I thought was fascinating is there are things that cause us to have memory problems, which have nothing to do with Alzheimer's or dementia.
Really?
Yeah, there's a whole list of things. It could vary from like medications that you're taking, possibly medications interacting with each other, or some medications can affect memory in a negative way. It can be depression that really is highly correlated with memory challenges. Just quite a few different things. That sleep apnea is a big one. And a lot of people struggle with OSA, obstructive sleep apnea, and it's going to interfere with memory. Because of that, again, I wanted to share with people the information that I was learning so that they could benefit.
Are there some things that people over 50 can do specifically to help improve their memory?
Yes. And it starts with good brain health, right? Because the brain controls your memory. And I actually created an acronym a number of years ago, two acronyms.
Mhm.
One of them is strictly reflecting on brain health. And I call it SENSE, SENSE, brain sense. And that's actually the title of my book. But socialization is so important. The research says that we need to stay socially engaged with other people. And that's why the pandemic was so difficult, especially for older adults, because it is very important to stay socially engaged. The next E in sense is exercise, because we need that blood flow to the brain, because the blood takes nutrients and oxygen to the brain, which it needs both of. The N is nutrition. And we used to hear the phrase, eat right for your heart. And actually, it's eat right for your brain as well. Very similar diets can impact our brain function. There's something called the gut microbiome, and it actually has connections to the brain. And so things that we consume and hydration is so important as well, because brain tissue needs to be hydrated. All those things are important. The other S in sense actually has two words associated with it. Sleep is extremely important for memory. As a matter of fact, Dr. Matthew Walker, who is in Berkeley, he has his whole research lab is addressing how to sleep or lack of restorative sleep impact the brain and he believes that people not getting enough restorative sleep, it will lead to Alzheimer's.
Yikes.
So we need that deep sleep, which happens throughout the night at various times. And so that's another thing that people, again, becomes more challenging as we get older. And so we have to find ways to make sure we're getting good sleep. And then the other S there is spirituality. A lot of research studies have shown that people who have a sense of meaning or purpose in their lives, again, especially in their older years, they do better. They stay healthier, they live longer, they have less depression. And so that's another important thing. And the last E that is education, which basically means learning new things all the time. Our brain loves to just sit and do what it knows how to do. And in order to build new neural pathways, we need to constantly be challenging our brain to learn new things.
That is really cool that you had put that together in an easy to remember acronym. I love the education thing because it is sad to see so many people over probably more 60, 70 than 50, but people who just do nothing but sit in front of a television all day long or doom scroll through social media and things like that without actually learning things, which is unfortunate because as a college professor, you would know seasoned citizens can often audit college classes for free. There's really no reason for them not to be engaging their brains.
And even if they're not able to leave the house for various reasons, there are many online courses they can take or documentaries they can watch to learn new things.
Exactly. So they're still watching TV, but they're learning, and it makes a difference to watching a documentary over Beverly Hillbillies.
But we need to have a balance. There has to be some humor and some fun.
Exactly. I agree with that. One thing I learned recently, and you can tell me if this is true, is cholesterol is necessary for good brain health.
I believe that's accurate. I haven't studied that much about cholesterol, but there also was something that came out from the Lancet Commission recently, because they have identified what they call modifiable risk factors of dementia. And they had 12 of them, and now they've upped that to 14. And the most recent one that happened in 2024 that they identified was cholesterol. So there is a point at which too much cholesterol, they believe, could be bad for the brain.
Bad for the brain.
Again, it's probably a balance. I'd love to find out what you read and where you read it. If you send me any articles, I'd love to read them because I try to keep up with the research. And then I have a blog on my website and I try to share information that way as well.
Okay. I thought it was fascinating because we have been told for a generation how bad cholesterol is and how we need to knock it out of our diet completely. And here, the brain, our most important organ of the body, requires cholesterol in order to function properly. So I guess it goes down to the everything in moderation.
Probably. The other thing I wanted to mention in terms of lifestyle practices and risk factors is hearing. There is a lot of research, huge body of research, that is talking about hearing loss that's uncorrected and risk for cognitive decline.
You just made 1,000 million women happy because they keep trying to get their husbands to put in and use their hearing aids.
Yeah, because if you're not hearing things, it really affects, it's not only for some people, it leads to social isolation. You know,
right?
They just don't want to go to events with other people or with noise or whatever because they can't hear and it's difficult for them. And so they withdraw socially. So that's a bad thing. And also the fact that the hearing parts of the brain, temporal lobes, et cetera, are not getting the stimulation they need when we hear things, that can contribute to their deterioration as well. So it changes things physically in the brain as well. Yeah, I just like to get that message out that if at all possible, get the hearing working again as best as possible. They might need to get hearing aids. They might need to get cochlear implants, but something so they can once again hear the sound.
This is great stuff, Linda. Do you travel around the country talking to people about this?
Some, yes.
Okay. What groups do you normally talk to?
Normally, it's senior living communities that have events that they're hoping to get people to come into their community to take a tour, to possibly think about moving there because they'd like to keep their population up. They tend to lose people,
right,
unfortunately. And so, yeah, usually that's where I speak a lot. Yeah. And I've got to share something. I'm actually listening to a novel. And she sent that to the woman who books me, one of the people who books me for speaking. But in this novel, someone had passed away in a nursing retirement type home. And when they went there, the woman went to get her brother's belongings, and there was a tour. And they said, our slogan is, happy endings are our specialty. But that's kind of weird, but it's appropriate, right?
Absolutely. Good.
We all want a happy ending.
So you were an elementary school teacher for many years in your prior to 50 life. What grades did you specialize in?
Actually, I didn't teach elementary that long.
Okay.
I was in middle school and then fourth grade and then sixth grade, but I knew I wanted to teach college. So then I went to graduate school at University of Colorado in Boulder, and I got my master's and my doctorate there. So I could then teach college. I went to school in Wisconsin, Ripon College, small liberal arts school.
Oh, yeah.
And when I was back home driving on the icy streets one winter, that first winter, I said, you know what? I'm an adult now. I don't have to live here. And I had discovered the beauty of Colorado the previous summer. And I thought, that's where I want to live. So I packed my little car and I moved to Colorado and I started teaching there. And it was interesting because I actually got a job. My second job teaching was in a school that a professor I had at Ripon used to be a consultant for. He used to talk about this school, and I ended up teaching in that same school. Unfortunately, it was one of these open space concept schools that was the new fad. I did not like it at all.
Open space rather than a classroom?
Yes, it was. They called them pods. So a great big wing of the building with 4 groups here and 4 groups there. And it was very distracting to students. I don't think they learned as well in that environment.
I remember the middle school I attended, I believe, was experimenting with that back in the mid-1970s. And we didn't like it at all.
I don't think it lasted too long.
Thank goodness there was a reason for that. So you're a professor in a Christian college. What do you specialize in at your classes there?
I taught mainly as an adjunct professor at Wheaton College in Illinois. I think a lot of people have heard of Wheaton. And I actually was hired to teach in the psychology department. Cognition and learning was a course. And then motivation was another, learning and motivation. And I actually got asked to design the cognition course when they started their PsyD program, their Doctor of Psychology. And I taught that in the graduate school there for a few years. And then I went to Judson, was college, then it became university in Elgin, Illinois. And there I taught mainly in the School of Education, but then I also taught cognitive psych as well.
What a small world, because two of my daughters attended Judson.
In Elgin?
In Elgin, yes.
Oh, wow.
Neither of
And
them-
I also taught, the fun part was at Judson, I got to teach faith and learning.
Oh,
It's a freshman course
mhm.
about worldview, and I love that. That was really very meaningful.
Then I would bet if you were teaching that, maybe both of my daughters were attending your classes. That would be funny. I'll have to check with them. What brought you to Arizona?
The weather. Back in 2016, my husband, Kerry, was getting ready to think about retiring, and we had to decide where we would go. I met him in Colorado, by the way. He's from Albuquerque, but came up to Boulder for a job, and that's where I was. So we met in a church singles group there. But we ended up back in Illinois because my family was there, and we were having kids, and we wanted to be near grandparents, but also he got a job offer at a company he really wanted to work for. So we went back to Illinois.
Now that you're in Arizona, I understand faith is really important to you. It was before that because you've been working at Christian colleges. Why did you select Christian colleges?
I don't know. I think God picked it for me. When we moved back to Illinois, like I said, we'd been in Colorado. That's where I got my PhD. But we were having children, so I wasn't working outside the home then. And then when our daughter started elementary school and our son was about to start, I applied to Wheaton because it was a Christian school, not too far away, and to see if I could teach there.
Okay.
And then Judson was an interesting experience. I went to a friend's son's wedding and ended up sitting next to a professor from Judson, and he got to know about my background. And actually, he mentioned me to someone else. They were starting a Master of Education program, and they asked me to be on the committee to help design the program. So that's how I got connected with Judson. And then later, when the head of that program left to go back to Iowa, they asked me to come over and take over.
Is it not amazing how God orchestrates connections like that and divine appointments that just guide us from one step to the other to the other?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, today you are working, today you've organized a group for seasoned citizens at your church.
Yes.
How did you come up with that idea?
Again, senior adults has just been a passion of mine because of the cognitive aging and wanting to help people learn about those things. And that's who I speak to when I travel to give talks. And also because at our former church in Illinois, we had adult Sunday school classes. So we'd go to service 1 hour and our class with our peers the next hour. We started attending a church here that we really liked, and it just didn't have that. And I felt like we weren't meeting other people in our age group. And a woman in my life group and I we both had this passion that we wanted to start something for, as you called us, seasoned adults. And so we came up with a plan, and we went and approached the pastor and the staff and said, could we do this? And they said yes. So it started last October, and we meet about once a month. And we had a great turnout the first time, and it's been continuing. So we think there was a need, that people shared this desire to get together. And right now it's focused on fellowship and food and fun. We'd like it to branch out into maybe people doing service projects, getting volunteering places. We hope that will eventually happen, or we can make it happen as the group matures.
That's a great idea as well, as to get people connected within the church with other groups if possible. Because I find a problem in many churches is that they isolate the seasoned citizens and they put them off into the corner all by themselves. You guys are retired now. Why don't you hang around with each other? When in fact, the younger generation so desperately need people of our age to serve as guides and mentors.
I was thinking more in terms of getting people involved in their communities where they live.
Even better.
But I think that's a great suggestion. Some intergenerational things would be good, probably, because it's true. We stay with the people that are our age.
Mhm.
And I really don't know any families with young children at our church. So there might be some ways we can get involved. I think I'll have to approach that with my co-founder and see if we can think of some ways we can approach the church about doing
Sure.
something like that.
What kind of rewards have you enjoyed as an older person?
I'm thankful for good health, for sure. We live in an active adult community, which is nice because we've been able to make friends and we have a gym and a pool and we can stay active, which is the E, the exercise of brain sense. We can socialize. So a lot of those things are available to us here. But I like that I can continue to study and learn and then share what I learn with other people.
Was it hard for you to publish a book?
Not really. And actually, the reason it was probably easier is I first wrote a curriculum. When I stopped teaching at Judson, I had done my sabbatical research and I felt like there was really a need to develop something for people to know more about brain health. And it turned out, again, God led me here, a community, a retirement community near my home where I had taught on my own, just like a memory class for the people there. They said, we just built a classroom. Would you could develop some courses to come and teach in our classroom? So I came up with a series of 6 topics that are brain and memory related. And when I did the first one, the room held 40 people. They had 100 people that wanted to come. So they moved me to the auditorium and I ended up doing 6 lectures in their auditorium because there was great interest. And I said, okay, this needs a full course. This needs to have an actual curriculum, a course where people could study and learn about brain health and engage in cognitively stimulating activities, because the research says we need to maintain and improve things like attention, speed of processing, memory, and so forth. So I created a course. I basically wrote the curriculum. It was for 10 weeks, an hour each time. And I taught it there several times and in another sister community in another town over 2 years. And people felt like they were benefiting from it. So I realized I couldn't be everywhere to teach it. So what I did is I created a facilitator guide. Since I'd been a trainer of teachers, I was able to put in this guide what to do if you're going to teach this course. And then workbooks for the participants. And I published that first and then put it on my website. And as I would go speak places, I would approach the person in charge of life enrichment or programs or whatever and say, would you like to see this course? It's something you can offer to your residents. Independent. This is not for people who have cognitive problems. This is for people to maintain and improve and hopefully not develop cognitive problems. That's the whole goal. It's called B, brain enrichment.
BE.
BE exclamation point, and it's brain enrichment. And it's, like I said, it's designed for 10 weeks. However, a woman who heard about it when I spoke in the villages in Florida, she is teaching it in 5 weeks, 2 hours at a time. So they go 2 hours once a week for 5 weeks. And she says it's working great. The class fills up every time and she has a waiting list. And so she offers it again in their next round of courses and so forth.
That's neat. So it's designed for use by retirement communities. Could churches use this as well?
Yes, churches could. Anybody could, really. Community centers have done it. Since I had that done, and since I'm a speaker, and a lot of times I would get asked, do you have a book? Because a lot of speakers have a book. And so I thought, okay, now I need to write my book. And my book is similar to the curriculum. It goes a little more in depth on the research on brain health, but it does have the exercises and so forth. And that book is called Brain Sense, a guide and workbook to keep your mind and memory sharp.
Okay.
So it's a long title, but it's on Amazon and people can find it by just putting Linda Sasser, my name, in the search window. And that's the quickest way to get to my book.
It sounds like it'd be a great thing for small groups to do and churches to help people
Possibly.
avoid having memory issues, or maybe to help people who are caring for those folks with memory issues to better understand what they're going through and what their capabilities are?
Possibly, yeah.
Okay. If you had to turn the clock back, is there anything you'd do differently today than you would have done?
I think I'm a good author, speaker, educator. I'm not a good business person. I did hire someone to design my website, but I haven't really done much with it since. I don't do anything really per se to market my curriculum or my book. Like for my curriculum, it's on my website, but unless someone in a retirement community is looking for a curriculum, some people have found it that way, to be honest. There's 2 places in Tulsa that are teaching it that they just found me through my website, found it. But I probably, that SEO, what did they talk about for
Yes.
websites?
Search engine
I've
optimization.
really pursued beefing that up to where this could become a bigger thing.
I've been doing that for years and it still baffles me. So I'm with you. I'd rather hire somebody to do it than learn to do it myself.
Yeah. And then the other thing is logistics, because I have a printing company I use in Illinois. And when I have to stack up on the facilitator guides and the workbooks, so I order them to print so many, then they ship them to me and then I ship them out to people. So if there were too many orders, I'd probably spend my whole life just packing and shipping things.
Absolutely. One of the things in Sense that you had mentioned was exercise. What kinds of things do you do to maintain an exercise regimen?
I do love to exercise. I try to do something every day because it is important for brain health and physical health. I love to walk. I go to the gym. I was there this morning. We have a nice little gym in our community, so I go there a few times a week. When the weather's cooperating, I love to ride my bike. Sometimes I don't really swim. My husband is a lap swimmer. He really swims, but I'll go and be in the pool and move my arms and legs a lot. So that's still, I say that counts as some movement.
Okay.
But it's mostly walking, biking, the gym, hiking some. Don't love the rockiness of the trails here in Colorado. In Arizona, Colorado's were nicer.
Right. It is.
Yeah.
The trails here can be really difficult because of all of the rocks that are in there. It's hard to go down the slopes with loose rock.
Even though I use trekking poles, I go very slowly because I don't want to fall.
Any chance we can see you in a marathon coming up soon?
No, I do not run. I walk.
Exactly. I agree with that. What about travel? Do you like to travel?
Oh, yes. Very much.
Where are the favorite places you like to go?
We've done a lot of cruising
Mm.
because we do enjoy cruises. They take you everywhere. You unpack once and go see different places and you get great food and you know where you're sleeping at night and you get entertainment in the evening. So that's our most typical vacation is a cruise. We also go to visit our daughter and son-in-law and grandchildren in Orlando about 4 times a year, just to see them and hang out with them. And we're hoping, actually, we did a Mediterranean cruise 2 years ago, so that was a new thing for us. And in about less than a month, we're going on another cruise and we're flying to Venice, Italy, where we've never been, and Croatia, and seeing some parts of Italy.
How can people connect with you if they would like to learn more about you or to hire you to come talk to their group about brain and memory health?
My website is brainandmemoryhealth.com, all run together. And an email they can reach me at. They can contact me through the website, but I'd rather a direct email, which is brainandmemoryhealth@gmail.com.
Okay.
So similar. And as I said, my book's on Amazon.
Do you have any plans to write another one?
No, people ask me that. No.
People don't realize how much hard work it is to put a book together. Thank you for sharing your story today with me, Linda. I really appreciate it. It's a topic that I think a lot of people our age, if they aren't already paying attention to, really need to, because it is becoming a problem, I think, with seasoned citizens who are not motivated to pursue things to keep their lives interesting and their brains active.
It's interesting because when I moved to Arizona, I thought someone even told me, oh, you're going to get a lot of speaking in Arizona because of all the seasoned population here. And that really hasn't happened. I still fly places to go and speak. And I just really wish that God would open some doors where I could do some speaking locally without having to go to the airport and fly somewhere. Even churches would be wonderful. And I would love to do that as well. Like you said, it's something that could benefit people in a church setting.
Jesus talked about that, the hometown prophet. It's much
Yeah,
easier for people to
exactly.
fly the expert in rather than utilize the expert in their backyard. Super. Thank you again for your time.
Oh, thank you.
One of the most powerful takeaways from my conversation with Linda Sasser is that memory decline is not an inevitable part of aging. Through her deep dive into the science of brain health, Linda discovered that our lifestyle choices, not just genetics, play a significant role in how our minds function as we get older. To make these choices easier to remember, Linda uses an acronym, SENSE, which stands for socialization. Staying socially connected combats isolation and supports cognitive function. Exercise. Physical movement increases blood flow to the brain, delivering essential nutrients and oxygen. Nutrition. Eating a brain-healthy diet, including proper hydration, is crucial. Your gut health is more connected to your brain than you might think. Sleep and spirituality. Deep, restorative sleep is essential for memory consolidation, and having a sense of purpose or meaning in life, what Linda calls spirituality, can lead to better health outcomes and greater life satisfaction. Education. Lifelong learning is non-negotiable. Challenging your brain with new skills and ideas builds fresh neural pathways and keeps your mind agile. Linda also warned of often overlooked factors that can impair memory, including untreated hearing loss, medication side effects, depression, and sleep apnea. By addressing these issues proactively, we can preserve not just our memory, but our overall quality of life. Linda's message is empowering and encouraging. It's never too late to take better care of your brain. Whether you're a retirement community director, a caregiver, or simply someone who wants to age with intention, Linda's curriculum and book, titled Brain Sense, a guide and workbook to keep your mind and memory sharp, offer practical steps you can implement today. To learn more about her courses or to book Linda as a speaker for your group, visit www.brainandmemoryhealth.com or email her directly at brainandmemoryhealth@gmail.com. This episode was a powerful reminder that just because we're getting older doesn't mean we have to slow down mentally. With a little effort and the right habits, we can continue learning, growing, and living with clarity at any age. That's all for this week's show. If you'd like to start living a more meaningful life, I encourage you to download our free guide to finding purpose, which is available at www.forwardfrom50.com. I'll have another inspirational interview on the next episode of the Forward from 50 podcast. Thanks for listening, and if you like this show, please consider leaving a review wherever you download the episodes.